My next tutorial is going to be a 22-inch 4x4 basket stitch, another one of my own patterns, which I am making a PDF for as well at the moment. This is the last size I have to do to get the PDF, to get all the measurements right. And I'm going to make this. You'll need 200-gram balls. This is King Cole Little Treasures. It's little spots of colour in it, lemon and blue and green, I think, and white. And you will need, don't think you can see the size on these needles, but they're that way. You'll need 4mm needles for the body and 325mm for the ribs. And the tension for this pattern is 6 stitches to the inch and 7.5 rows to the inch. So I will be casting on the stitches and showing you the rest of this tutorial. So I have made my slip knot. I'm using the 3.25mm needles and I'm going to cast on 66 stitches. And I cast on the cable cast on way. For anyone that doesn't know how to do that, you don't go into the stitch, you go behind the stitch. Not into it, but behind it like that. You have 2 stitches there like that, so you go behind those 2 stitches. So you can see like that. And I'm going to cast on 66 stitches using that way of cast on. That is my way of casting on, like that. I think you get a much neater edge. I don't like the long tail cast on or the thumb cast on or whichever other way you do it, because I have tried them and they never come out as neat as this way. And I always leave a long end like this when I cast on, and that end stitches up either the side or the sleeve, whichever part you're knitting. Saves you having to add little bits to the you'll have to find my end now. Get that end out the way. I usually roll that up and put a stitch marker into it to keep it out of the way when I'm knitting. So I'm now going to cast on 66 stitches the way I showed you. And when you put the stitch onto the needle like that and put your needle in between the 2 stitches, pull that stitch tight that you've just done, and that tightens up the edge of the rib like that. You see how slack that is, and then when you pull it, it tightens it up. That is just for any beginner knitter who has maybe is just learning to do these things. So I have cast on 66 stitches, and now I'm going to do knit 1, purl 1, twisted rib. And I'm sure most of you now know how to do the twisted rib because I've shown so many times. But just in case you're new in it and you don't, for twisted rib, it's just knit 1, purl 1, only you knit into the back of the knit stitch. I'll show you like this. You knit into the back, as you can see, of the knit stitch. So it's knit 1, purl 1, knit into the back of the knit stitch, purl 1, knit into the back of that knit stitch. And that is how you do the twisted rib. I will be doing that for 12 rows, and then I will come back and tell you how to start the pattern. That's the 12 rows of twisted ribbon knitted, and I have done the first 2 rows of the pattern because I haven't knit this size before, and I had to work out to make sure I had the stitches in the right place. So I started with 3 knit and I ended with 3 knit. That's why I like to start and finish with the same stitches. But this is 2 rows. The next 2 rows are exactly the same, and there's 4 rows to the pattern, to this part of the pattern. So I will show you so you're going to knit 3 stitches. Oh, and I changed to the 4mm needles, by the way. That's upside down there, but you can see that's what to do this. So that's knit 3 and then purl 4. And then knit the next 4. Purl the next 4. And knit the next 4 and carry it on, alternating those knits and purls across the row. And I will be back when I get that far. So I'm on to the last 3 stitches, so I'm going to knit those 3 stitches. And I always knit into the back. If the row ends with a knit stitch, I always knit into the back of that knit stitch. Gives you a neater edge. So that's the 3rd row. And the 4th row is just a reverse of what we've just done. Instead of starting with knit 3, we're starting with purl 3. And then it's knit 4. And then purl 4. And knit 4 again and carry on across the row, alternating the knits and the purls. Now the last 3 stitches we're going to purl. So that is the first 4 rows to the pattern. There's actually 8 rows to the pattern, but the next 4 rows are exactly the same, only we're reversing. Instead of starting with knit 3, we're going to start with purl 3, the same as the row you've just did before that. So we start with knit 3, purl 3, sorry. That's purl 3. And then knit 4 where this purl you knit. And then purl 4. And then you carry on just alternating the stitches like that. Just you're reversing what you did before. So you're knitting over the purl and purling over the knit. And at the last 3 stitches, going to purl those 3. And the next row is the same as what you did for the very first row. It's knit 3. And then purl 4. and knit 4. Again, just carry on across the row doing the purls and the knits alternating, but you're doing the same stitch that you're seeing there now. So you're doing a purl, the next one is a purl, and your last 3 stitches are knit 3 stitches, and as again knit into the back of the last knit stitch. And that is how the row goes. You have another 2 rows to do to make the 8 rows, but the next 2 rows, which are 7 and 8, are exactly the same as what you've just done for 5 and 6, and you'll carry on with those 8 rows, knitting them until your knitting gets to 8.5 inches. So I have now reached the armholes, and I'm going to show you how to cast off, which I'm sure you all know how to do. So we're going to cast off 3 stitches at the beginning of the next 2 rows, and as we're starting a different block of 4, we're going to start with the purl, but we're going to knit stitches there. That's 1, 2, 3, 3rd stitch, and now we're going to carry on knitting the pattern across the row. Until I get to the other end, and I'll meet you then. So after we're at the other end, I'm now going to cast off 3 stitches on this end. This 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to pattern to the end of that row. So those are the stitches at both ends, 3 stitches at both ends cast off, and now we're going to knit another 2 rows before we start the decreasing. The first 2 stitches we're going to do on this row are knit, and then follow the pattern stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, until you get to the last 2 stitches. Now the last 2 stitches, and we're going to knit those stitches. And we have 1 more row to do before we decrease, and the first 2 stitches, you'll be doing this on every wrong side row. You purl the first 2 stitches, and then do the pattern whatever it comes to, whatever stitch you come to, that you have to do. So go across the row until you come to the last 2 stitches, And the last 2 stitches are purl. And like I said, that'll be on every other row that you're doing those 2 purl stitches at the start and the end of the row. And the next row is a decreasing row. So going to knit 1, slip 1 stitch, knit the next stitch, and then pass that slip stitch over. And that's a new block of 4 we are doing, so you do the opposite of what the stitch is. So if it's a purl, you do a knit, and if it's a knit, you do a purl. That's 4, and it's knit the next 4, and carry on with the pattern till you get to the last 3 stitches. At the last 3 stitches, we're going to knit 2 together and knit the last stitch. And now we're going to do 3 more rows, and you will be decreasing again on the 4th row, and then it will be every other row after that. So that's how the decreasing goes, and continue doing that until you have 22 stitches left, and you'll place those stitches onto a holder. Now I have finished the back. I'll blow that up a little bit. And I'm ready to put the stitches onto a stitch holder. I now have 22 stitches which I'm going to put onto this holder. And this is the actual wrong side, as you can see where the decreasing is. When I did the last row, I did the decreasing, but I didn't do the row on the other side, because when you pick up the stitches for the neckband, you knit that row anyway. So when I pick up the stitches for the neckband, I knit the pattern where it shows here when I pick the stitches up. So I'm going to put those 22 onto the holder. 2, 3, 4, 5, 19, 20, 21, that's 22 stitches. And just a little recap, we cast on 66 stitches for the rib, for the bottom, when you knit 1 by 1 twisted rib for 12 rows. Then we started off with knit 3 to keep both stitches the same at the end, 3 at the start and 3 at the finish, and then it was purl 4, knit 4, purl 4, knit 4, until we got to 8.5 inches up to the armholes. And the rib was done on 3.25mm needles, and then we changed to 4mm needles, and then we cast off the 3 stitches on each side here, and then we decreased we knit 2 more rows. So it was after the 4th row we did 1 decrease, and then knit another 3 rows. In the next 4th row we did a decrease, and then there was decrease on every alternate row until there was 22 stitches left, which left us with the stitch holder for to hold the stitches. I have the start of the left front, and I've been using 3.25mm needle, and I have cast on 32 stitches the left front. And now I'm going to change to 4mm needle, and I'm going to do the pattern. The left front starts with knit 2 to keep the pattern so that you have the same at the start and at the finish. So it's going to be knit 2, and then purl 4, and then knit 4. And then purl 4. And then knit 4 until we get to the last 2 stitches. And now it's to the last 2 stitches, we're going to knit those 2 stitches. Now I always knit into the back of the last knit stitch on the row. That's the first row. And the second row, and so the next row it's going to be purl 2 to start off with. And then knit 4. So you're doing the opposite of what you did on the other row. And then purl 4. And then carry on to the last 2 stitches. Now I want the last 2 stitches, and we're going to purl those 2 stitches. And the next 2 rows are exactly the same as the 2 rows you've just done. The next row we're going to start with knit 2 and then purl 4, knit 4, to the end row, knit 2. And then the other row, the 4th row, will be purl 2, knit 4, purl 4, and so on to the end to purl 2. So that is the first 4 rows of the pattern, and the next 4 rows are just going to be a reverse of what we've already done. So instead of starting with 2 knit, we're going to start with 2 purl. And then we're going to knit where we have 4 purl, we're going to do 4 knit. And then where we have 4 knit, we're going to do 4 purl. And we had the last 2 stitches, we're going to purl those 2 stitches. And so the next row is just starting with knit 2. And then purl 4. And then knit 4. The last 2 stitches, knit 2. And that is 2 rows. The next 2 rows are exactly the same as what you did on the bottom, the same as the first 2. So you're starting with knit 2, purl 4 again. And that's how you go until you reach 8.5 inches. And with the back, it's easy to work out how many rows you've actually done, because they're all in blocks of 4. You just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 times 4. That's 56 rows, I think, isn't it? That's my arithmetic. So that's easy to count up. So all you need to do is count up your blocks of 4 up to the armholes. And I will be back when I get that far. I'm back with the left front, and I have knitted 8.5 inches up to the armholes, and now I'm going to show you how to shape the armholes. The first row we're going to cast off 3 stitches, and as we're onto a new block of 4, because we've just finished 4 here, So these are 2 purl there. We're going to do 2 knit and then purl over those ones. The same for the cast off. So it's knit those 2, cast off 1, and then we're going to purl another 2. Cast off 2 stitches, cast off 3 stitches, and that's just carry on with the pattern across the row. So we have 2 more purl stitches to do. And then 4 knit stitches. I'm going to do another 3 rows, and then on the next row we'll be decreasing. On the second row, which is the wrong side, when you come to the last 2 stitches, you purl those 2 stitches. On every wrong side row, the 2 stitches at the armhole edge are purled. And when you start the next row, if there's no decreasing, which there won't be until you've done this on the 4th, you start decreasing on the 4th row and then the 8th row, but those first 2 stitches are knit. And then you just follow the pattern, the purl and then the knit along that row. So that's the 3 rows after the cast off row. So now we're going to decrease. So we're going to knit 1 stitch, slip 1, knit the next stitch, and pass that slip stitch over the knit stitch. And then as these next stitches, it's a new row for a block of 4, so we're going to purl over the knit stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's how we're going across that row. And we're going to finish that row and then do another 3 rows, and then we'll be decreasing like that again. And this is the next 4th row that we're going to decrease on. As you can see down there, that was where we did the last one. So there's 1, 2, 3 rows, and we're going to do the 4th one. So that's knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, pass that slip stitch over, and again we're on to the new set of stitches. So it's not knit, it's knit over the purl stitches. I nearly did a purl. And then purl over the knit stitch. And there will be 1 more row after this row, and then we'll be decreasing on alternate rows after that. So every row after that, other row after that is going to be knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slip stitch over. And when you knit the stitches on the other side, when you come to those last 2 stitches, it's always purl 2 at the end. No matter what the stitches that you've been following, those last 2 are always purl 2. And then you're going to decrease like that until you have 15 stitches left on the needle. I have now knitted across the right side row, and I'm left with 15 stitches. So you finish on the right side, so you turn over onto the wrong side to do the neck decreasing. So we're going to cast off 4 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, that is 4 stitches, and then we're going to knit across So we knit across that row, and now we are going to decrease at the neck edge on the next 5 rows, decreasing at the armhole edge as before on alternate rows. So that's slip one, knit one, and pass the slip stitch over, and then knit to the last 2 stitches. That's 4. And then we're going to knit those last 2 stitches together. The next row we're going to purl those 2 stitches together. And then knit until you've decreased 5 times at the neck edge. That's twice. We do 3 times on this row and keep decreasing till you've decreased 5 times, and then just decrease on the armhole edge until there are 2 stitches left. So we have 3 stitches left, so we're going to knit the first stitch, slip the next stitch, knit that stitch, take that purl stitch, slip stitch over. You're left with 2 stitches, and now I'm going to purl 2 stitches together. And just need to to cut that off and pull it through. So that is the left front done, and now we're going to do the right front. And the right front is exactly the same as the left front. You start with your 325mm needles, you cast on 32 stitches, and then change the you knit 12 rows in 1 by 1 twisted rib, and then change to your 4mm needles and do the same pattern exactly to what you've done with this one up to the armholes. And then I will come back and show you how the decreasing goes from the armholes, because you just reverse all the shaping. I have done the left front up to the armholes, and I'm showing you how it looks now with the 3 pieces. Now when I do a tutorial, I never used to actually show the instructions for the right front, because when you do the left front and then you do the right front, it's just a reverse of all the instructions. But I have since found out that a lot of new knitters don't know how to reverse. So that's why I'm showing that if I want to do any more tutorials, I will always show both sides, so there's no confusion for the new knitters. But anyway, this was the left side here, and when you did the left side, you finished on the wrong side, and then you started doing the shaping on the right side of the knitting. But on the left side, I've already knitted across the right side, and I'm going to do the shaping on the wrong side, starting the shaping on the wrong side, because you're working on the opposite side, and that's reversing the instructions. So I will take these pieces out of the way and show how to do this. Exactly the same as I showed on the left front, only you're doing it on the opposite side. I'll blow that up a little bit. So we're going to cast off 3 stitches, and we already have started that next block of 4, so you just follow the stitches that's there. 2, cast off 1, we're knitting the next few stitches. 2, that is 3, and then we are going to just knit the pattern to the end now. So on this side here, the right side, we had to knit across the row to get to the row where we cast the stitches off, and then we had to knit that row where we cast the stitches off. So on the left side, you only knit that 1 row, and then you knit 3 rows afterwards. But because we've already knit 2 rows on here on the right side, we are going to only knit 2 rows afterwards before we start the decreasing. So that's 1 row after the cast off stitches, and when you come to the last 2 stitches beside the where the cast off stitches were, you knit those 2 stitches. And on the next row and on every wrong side row, you purl those first 2 stitches. And then just work whatever stitch you have to do across the row. It's easy enough to follow the pattern because you just follow the stitches that you see until you do the 4 rows, and then you alternate them. So we are onto the decreasing row, and when we decreased on the left side, we decreased at the start of the row, but on the right side, the reverse side, you're decreasing at the end of the row. So we're going to pattern, it's a new block of 4, so instead of knit we're going to purl, instead of purl it's going to be knit, and we knit across to the last 3 stitches. So at the last 3 stitches, and we're going to knit 2 stitches together, knit 1 stitch, so now we've done those 3 more rows, and you can see that was where the first decrease was done. So we've done another 1, 2, 3 rows, and this next 4th row will be the decreasing row, and then after that you're decreasing on every other row, on every alternate row, and you'll keep on doing that until you have 15 stitches left, and you will end on the wrong side row. So we finished on the wrong side row, and we're casting off the stitches for the neck on the right side row, and I've cast off 4 stitches here, and we're going to knit across. On the left side I knitted until there was 16 stitches because we're casting off on the neck and decreasing on the same row. So I made it to 16 instead of 15. That has to be changed to a purl. And now we're going to decrease on the last 2 stitches of every row for the next 5 rows on the neck. So we're going to purl this two, and the next stitches are knit. We have 2 stitches left, so we're going to knit 2 together. That's 1 decrease. And the next row we're going to knit 2 together through the back of the loops. And at the same time, you're decreasing at the armhole edge. And you carry on decreasing at the neck and the armhole edge until you've decreased 5 stitches here, and then carry on decreasing at the armhole until there are 2 left, and then purl 2 stitches together. So I finished decreasing at the neck edge, and I now have 4 stitches, so I'm going to carry on until decreasing just at the armhole edge until there's 2 stitches left. That's your purl stitches. This, the 2 together, knit 1, and the next 2 just purl those 2 stitches together. There, we just need to cut that wool off, and that's that side finished, the right side. So that's the back and the 2 fronts done. The next part is the sleeves. We are now onto the sleeves, and I use 3.25mm needles, and I cast on 34 stitches, and I'm knitting 1 by 1 twisted rib for 12 rows, and then I changed to the 4mm needles and I started the pattern. And this pattern I started with knit 3, purl 4, knit 4, purl 4 to the end, knit 3. But on the 3rd row I increased. That's when I started the increasing on the stitches. So on the 3rd row I increased 1 stitch, so we now had 4. It was knit 4, purl 4, knit 4, purl 4, knit 4, purl 4. And then on the next block it was purl 4, knit 4. And now I'm going to increase on the next row, which is the 6th row. And the increase is going to be on every 6th row until we have 50 stitches. So the increase it's purl stitches we have here. So as the first stitch after your increase will be a knit, so I'm going to knit here, knit this, and I'm going to stitch increase purl wise. It's going to be purl 1 into that stitch and then purl into the back of that stitch. I can get through the whole stitch. And then just carry on with the pattern across the row. So we now have knit 1 and purl 4. So we're going to carry on across the row until we get to the last couple of stitches. So we're at the last 2 stitches, so we're going to purl that stitch and then purl into the back of that stitch and knit the last stitch. And that's how you decrease or increase, sorry, into patterns, inside patterns. So you try to keep the stitches the same as what you're knitting. So you're going to keep on increasing like that on every 6th row now until you have 50 stitches. The sleeve now measures 9 inches. That is the length that we want for a 22 inch. So now I'm going to cast off the stitches for the armholes. We're going to cast off 3 stitches each side, and as the last block of 4 were knit here, so it's purl. It's 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to knit across the row following the pattern. As you see, if it's purl you do knit, and knit you do purl. Now we're going to cast 3 stitches off on the other side. It's 1, 2, that's 3. Now we're going to pattern across this row. So we've cast off 3 stitches on the beginning of the last 2 rows, and now we're going to knit 2 more rows before we start decreasing. So those are the 2 rows knitted, and now I'm going to do a decreasing row, and we're also on a change of pattern row. So you're going to knit 1, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch, and then pass that slipped stitch over that stitch, and then the next stitch here where you had knit is a purl. And then you're going to knit over the purl stitches, and I'm knitting to the last 3 stitches. We are now at the last 3 stitches, and we're going to knit those 2 stitches together and knit the last stitch. And we're going to knit another 3 rows again. But when you do the row on the wrong side, you purl the first 2 stitches, no matter what the stitch pattern is, you purl those, and you do the same at the end of the row. You come to the end of the row, you purl the last 2 stitches. You come to the last 3 stitches, 1 stitch knit, and you're purling the last 2 stitches. So we have another 2 rows to knit before we decrease again. But on the rows where you aren't doing any decreasing, like on the other side, you purl 2, you knit those first 2 stitches. And then carry on with the pattern to the last 2 stitches, and you knit those 2 stitches. So at the last 3 stitches is 1 purl and 2 knit. And so we're going to do another 2 rows. No, it's only another 1 row. We're going to do another 1 row because that was your decrease there. And you do 1, 2, another 1 row, that's 3. So it'll be on your next 4th row. So that's 1 more row to do, and I'll be decreasing again. So my next row is a decreasing row. So like the first one, it's knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slip stitch over that knit stitch, and change your pattern again. It's purl over the knit. Last 3 stitches, going to knit 2 together, knit 1. And that's 2 decreases we've done on the 4th rows, and we're going to do that, knit 3 rows, so that we'll have decreased once, twice, and it'll be, after the 3 rows, that'll be 3 times altogether on the 4th rows, and then it's going to decrease exactly like I've done here on every other row after that, until you have 8 stitches left. And we'll put those on a safety pin, but I will be back when I get that far. Well, that is the sleeve finished. We're left with 8 stitches, and now I'm going to put those stitches on a safety pin. And when you do your last decrease, I did the last decrease on the right side, but I didn't knit the wrong side row. Did it on the right side, but left the wrong side row. I'm picking up the stitches from the wrong side row, because when you pick up the stitches to do the neckband or a collar, you knit across those stitches anyway for that row. So we're just going to place these stitches onto the safety pin. I don't have any small stitch holder, so safety pin comes in handy. So that's the sleeve done. That's all 5 pieces done for the cardigan. Now I'm going to put a collar on this one, so I'll have to pick up the stitches for the bands on the front first, because when you pick up the stitches for the collar, you knit across half of the stitches of the band. You go halfway across. See, this was a band. You start halfway across the band to pick up the stitches, so you need to do the bands first. But if you're just doing an ordinary round neck, you'll pick up the stitches for the neck first and then do the bands. Now I am working on one of the fronts, and I'm picking up the stitches for the band. And when I pick up the stitches, I pick up 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and miss the fourth stitch, so that's would be where the fourth stitch is, so I'll go into the next one. So I miss every fourth stitch. 1, 2, 3, and then miss the fourth stitch, which be that one. We go on to that one. And that is how you pick the stitches up, how I pick the stitches up. But I'll tell you after I've picked the stitches up, I'll tell you how many stitches there are. So I have picked up 75 stitches for the, this is the button band. If you are doing if you're not putting a collar on and just doing the round neck, you would want a few more stitches, because these stitches only go up to where the collar fits on. But if you're doing a band, you'd have a few more stitches that you'd be picking up where the band was, probably about another 5 stitches. So you probably want about 79 or 80 stitches if you're doing just a round neck. So the first row on this, after you've picked up the stitches, you knit the first row. And I didn't say this at the start, but we're using 3.25mm needles for the bands. So you knit the first row, so that's the knit row done. And as you can see, it gives you a nice edge to separate the this part of the cardigan from the band. And as this is for a girl, this cardigan, where I'm putting the bands for the girl's side. So this is the left side. Yes, this is the left side for to put the buttons on, and the buttonholes will be on the right side. And so now you're going to knit 6 rows and knit 1 purl, 1 twisted rib. If you're doing the twisted rib, it's what I'm doing. So that's all you have to do for that now. You don't do anything else but the rib. And you'll knit 6 rows, and then the last row you will cast off very loosely, but I will come to that when I get to that. A little correction, I was actually looking at the wrong size in my book. There's actually 79 stitches, not 75, and it will be probably 83 or 85 if you're adding the band on here, if you're doing a round neck. So I have knit the 6 rows, and now I'm casting the stitches off and doing it very loosely so that the band doesn't pull in tight. So you just take the stitch over, don't pull it tight, just leave it as it is the way you take it off. With that stitch. As if you pull the stitch tight, it'll tighten up the band, and the band will sort of curl in. So you have to keep it very slack. last stitch, I just pull that until I get the scissors to cut it up. And that's the band, and as you can see there's plenty stretch in it, which is what you want. So that's the button band, and the next part will be the buttonhole band, and that will be exactly the same as what you've done here, only I will be putting buttonholes on the fourth row. Yes, I'll be putting buttonholes on the fourth row. I have now picked up the 79 stitches for the buttonhole band, and I've placed stitch markers where I'm going to place the buttonholes. I'll blow that up so you can see better. And I've counted between each set. If you have the same number of stitches, the 79 stitches what I have, I placed a stitch marker, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the 7th knit stitch. It's the same with all, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So every 7, and it works out even up to the top. I've left 1 at the top and 1 there where the stitch marker is, and 2 at the bottom. And to do the buttonholes, our knit, we're starting with a knit stitch, a purl stitch, sorry, not a knit stitch, that's a knit stitch, purl stitch. And when you come to the stitch that has a stitch marker, you knit that stitch, bring your wool forward and knit the next 2 stitches together. Keep your wool quite slack there, because you don't want a very tight buttonhole. I tend to put my finger on the wool there so it doesn't go too tight around the... I can get it there. That's it. Knit the 2 stitches together, and that's how I make my buttonholes. The looser you make that stitch, the larger the buttonhole. If you want a tight one, don't do what I just did. And then you just knit and rib to the next stitch marker. And we're on to the next stitch marker, so we're going to knit that stitch, roll forward, knit 2 together. And so on to the next stitch marker, and that's how you make the buttonholes. And so you have 2 more rows to do after that, and then you will be casting off loosely like I showed you on the other band. So you're now doing the neck on the cardigan. If you're doing just an ordinary round neck, you start, or for a collar, you start exactly the same way for an ordinary round neck and a collar. You start with the right front, and I've picked up, because I'm doing a one with a collar, I've picked up 4 stitches. I've started halfway across the band here. I've started halfway across the band and picked up 4 stitches, and then another 15 stitches. So that's 19 altogether. But if you're just doing a round neck, you're picking up 15 stitches, There's 8 stitches for the sleeve, 22 stitches for the back, another 8 for the sleeve, and 15 stitches plus 4, which takes you halfway across the band. And I've knit the first row. If you're doing a round neck or a collar, you do exactly the same. You knit the first row, but on the collar I started off with, I knit 2 and then increase in the next stitch, and then I knit 3 stitches and increased in the 4th stitch. So I increased on the 4th stitch every way across, all the way across here, until I got to the last 2 stitches, and then I knit those 2 stitches. So if you're knitting a round neck without the extra 8 stitches on for the collar, you have 68 stitches. But if you're doing a collar, that would be 68, 76 stitches. 76 stitches. And then after you've increased for the collar, after you've increased all those stitches, I will have to count those stitches up because I don't know how many stitches I have. So I now have 96 stitches for knitting the collar, and I'm going to do the collar in 1 by 1 rib. But if you're doing just a round neck, you would knit 5 rows in 1 by 1 rib and cast off loosely. But as I'm doing the collar, I'm going to knit till it's 3 inches long and then cast off very loosely. So I'd start off with, I'm doing a twisted rib, the same as I've done for the rest of the cardigan. So it's just knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. That's the collar knitted. I knitted to 2 3/4 inches because I wasn't sure there was going to be enough wool for 3 inches, but it is quite long enough actually. And now I have been sewing the seams. I do a flat stitch when I do raglans. I'll show how I do a flat stitch. Just hold the 2 pieces. This is one of the sleeves and one of the fronts. Just hold the 2 pieces together and take a stitch from either side. And that is how you flat stitch. And as you can see, it makes a nice neat seam. So that's how you flat stitch. So this is the finished cardigan. And I did a little hat as well with what was left of the wool. Not enough for a pom-pom, but I would probably find maybe it's a little bit green like the buttons and do a pom-pom with that. So for anyone that wants to do the hat, I'll have to go and have a look at my book and see how many stitches I have on. So the hat was 84 stitches, and I knit the 325mm needles, and I knit, let's check on my hat here, I knit 3 inches in the rib, and then the knit 4, purl 4 pattern after the rib until with the brim here folded up 6 inches from here up to the top. And when you knit the pattern, the knit 4, purl 4, you just knit 4, purl 4 across the row, and the next row, it depends what you finish with. If you finish with knit, you start the next row with purl. If you finish with purl, you start it with knit, and do that for 4 rows, and then alternate the stitches, and that's all. And when you come to the length that you want to knit, you knit across the row on the knit stitches. On the 4 knit stitches, you knit 2 together through the back of the loop, and then knit 2 together, and then you purl the 4 purl. And you do the same on the other side. When those 4 purl stitches will be knit stitches on the other side, you do the same on the other side, 2 through the back of the loop and 2 together. And on the next row, you just purl 2 together, and the next row after that, purl 2 together until whatever few stitches you have left, just pull them through. Put a needle through and pull all the stitches through. So that is the end of that tutorial. So if you like that and would like to see more, with thumbs up and subscribe. And this one will be a PDF and then a paper pattern when I get round to writing it all out.